It's an absolute pleasure to welcome author Steve Ince to our new series of author interviews. Welcome, Steve, who is based in East Yorkshire, UK, and thank you for taking the time to share not one, but two of your books with UK's teachers. Your books are called The Quinton Quads and the Mystery of Malprentice Manor and Amanda Alexander and the Very Friendly Panda, both of which sounds like such intriguing titles. So before we get stuck into your books, Steve, can you please tell us more about your journey as a writer of children's books?
Yes, firstly, great. Thank you for inviting me along. It's a pleasure to talk to you. And I've been writing for a number of years because I've been working in the video games industry on all kinds of games, including some of which are, being aimed at children. And I've also created a number of interactive stories for an app called Wonder Stories, which can be downloaded for free on iPhone and Android phones and so on. So when the ideas for the Quinton Quads and Amanda Alexander came about, I just knew that there needed to be books rather than games. And I have 6 grandchildren, 5 of which are girls, and I wanted to write books that I hoped that they would enjoy reading. And really that's kind of where I am at the moment,
So you would say that reading for pleasure basically inspired you. It really was about the love of books that made you put pen to paper. So at what point in your career did you decide that, you know what, I'm going to go into children's books. This is what I want to do as a passion. So I can understand that you were inspired by your grandchildren, but when did you decide to take it seriously?
I guess really, the past year, I mean, it's been a bit, sort of all over the place for many of us. And, sort of I've been playing around with these ideas for quite a while. And I thought, well, this is the opportunity to really make the most of these ideas. And so basically I just sat down, got them finished off, got them polished, got the illustrations done, and decided, sort of like to release them myself, because it was just something that had been sort of like sitting with me for so long that I needed to complete it.
I can imagine. It's kind of like having that itch and you've got this idea and it's got to come out there. Fantastic. So I would like you to just give us an idea of the book content for particularly the mystery of, so let's see, it's the Quinton Quads and the Mystery of Malprentice Manor. Let's hear a bit more about this particular book.
Well, this is the book. I hope you can see it nice and clearly. So sort of, and on the back we've got the Quinton Quads, the 4 girls. Ooh, I'm turning it wrong. And sort of at the bottom there, under my finger, there is also their arch nemesis, Evil Edith, who is quite prominent in the story, and she's the owner of Malprentice Manor, who they go and sort of they investigate the mystery of it, much to sort of like her disgust, as it were. She doesn't want them anywhere near the manor, but they do so anyway, because of not only is there a mystery in the manor, there have been some local disappearances, sort of, and when they sort of like spot some strange boys sort of like behaving oddly around the manor, they think that there's something going on with these disappearances, and that Evil Edith has probably kidnapped these people. So they feel that they must investigate.
What kind of genre would you say this book is?
Well, it's a mystery adventure, I guess. Sort of, I think that would best describe it. I mean, it's I think it's quite a long novel for children. It weighs in at around 300 pages, but there are a lot of illustrations in there. There's about 50 illustrations that I did for it, and it's one of those books that that kind of like fit in with loosely with the kind of old Enid Blyton type, you know, Secret Seven type investigation, except hopefully this is much more up to date. And you know, not that I'm trying to compare myself with Enid Blyton in any way, but you know, it's that kind of mystery. It's kind of, it's a book that's about, you know, sort of solving a mystery without, you know, magic or super technology or gadgets or anything like that. You know, they have to be inventive with, you know, simple things, you know, kind of using levers and, you know, sort of thinking about, you know, kind of like how they're going to, you know, solve a, you know, a centuries old puzzle that's been down, you know, kind of like hidden away. And using their own skills and abilities and you know, their own intelligence, as it were, because they're very intelligent, you know, 10-year-old girls, and I wanted that. I want these characters, and not just them. I mean, there's a young guy called Tim, and there's Uncle Roscoe, who's you know, sort of quite old, and people like this, you know, sort of like there are, you know, various characters.
Can I just ask, would you say then that this particular novel is more appropriate for Key Stage 2 children?
I would say, you know, age, you know, sort of like 8 to 12, thereabouts. So I don't know what that equates to. But
yes, that's actually Key Stage 2. So that's yeah, spot on.
yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so do tell us a bit more about your second book, Amanda Alexander and the Very Friendly Panda.
Yes. You may gather that I like big titles. So that's the book. The cover is a lovely sort of big wraparound. Oops, I'm moving it the wrong way. A big wraparound cover. There are lots of illustrations inside, you know, sort of all in full color, which I created, and you know, so I just wanted to create a fantastic, fun, colorful book, you know, sort of that rhymed. You know, the whole of the story is told in rhyme, and it's a book that you know, sort of like is about friendship and you know, sort of, you know, being kind and you know, sort of, I don't know, solving a kind of fear of something silly, really, just through friendship and so on. But the story isn't hugely complicated. It's more about, you know, the journey, really, through rhyme and pictures and so on. You know, and sort of it basically starts with Mr. Panda inviting Amanda Alexander to tea, and she can't refuse an invitation like that, because not only is he very friendly, he has a marvelous reputation for being a fine baker of delicious scones. And so she goes home and brings along her friend, a mouse called Mr. Josh, and along the way they meet, you know, there's an accident and there's unexpected meetings and unwanted visitors, and, you know, things like this. But it all kind of comes along.
Nobody wants those.
Yeah, and you know, sort of the title kind of lends itself to the nature of the rhyme in a way, because of the way that it unfolds and you know, sort of like just the rhythm I gave to it.
Just to double check, that one in particular, that picture book, it does sound like it would be very appropriate for Key Stage 1 children. I can straight away hear kind of intertextual links with the tiger who came to tea, even a bit of Alice in Wonderland with the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. So I can hear quite a few connections there in terms of book references and things that teachers can play with in terms of a theme. So that sounds absolutely fantastic. I also loved the fact that you mentioned in your first book, the Quinton Quads and the Mystery of Malprentice Manor, that the children were designing things with not gadgets and technology, but actual actual real life things that they had to use their brain to figure out how to put together to solve mysteries and things like that. So straight away my teacher head is going, oh, design technology. So there's stuff there that children can really kind of experiment with and get stuck in to kind of even put themselves in the story itself. So they all sound absolutely fantastic. So just to go on.
There's one point in the Quinton Quad's book where one of the girls makes a net, sort of from pieces of string. And I looked up a video on YouTube, and creating a basic net is actually very simple, and it's a sort of thing that kids could do very easily.
Yes.
And I just thought, yeah, sort of like kids could experiment with this themselves and create their own nets, from pieces of string. And I just thought, yeah, this is actually, something that really works within the story. And, it's not just thrown in for the sake of it. It's a vital part of, kind of like rescuing some of the children. I think it works, personally, I think it works very well. And I love stories that think like that.
I think you've more or less answered my next question, Steve, which was about, what you'd like children to enjoy most about reading your book. I do think that you've kind of hit the nail on the head. They've got everyday things that they can relate to. You've made sure that the plot itself is quite engaging for your books. And that children will want to keep reading, which is always important. We want as teachers to develop that stamina, and there's nothing better to develop stamina than hooking them in with a good book that makes them want to know what's on the next page and what's on the next page. Thank you so much for sharing a bit about that. So as you know, reading for pleasure is proven by research to have the highest impact across learning in terms of raising attainment. The national curriculum places reading for pleasure at the core of everything. It is a bit of a quandary for teachers, for the simple reason that they have got this paradox of developing reading for pleasure, but also developing reading for attainment. So we are often looking for books that can translate within the classroom setting and help us to deliver teaching around reading skills. What particular skills would you say that children would be able to achieve through accessing your book in a classroom setting? So you could look at each book one at a time and just give us an idea of the kind of skills that children would develop while reading this text within the classroom.
Well, one of the things that I tend not to shy away from is, kind of like using good vocabulary. But I like to make sure that sort of like if there is a bigger word used, then it's done properly within the right context. So you can either get the meaning of the word from the context, or there will be words that the readers may need to learn by looking it up or something like this. But I don't think that will necessarily slow them down. I think that sort of like the story rolls, and if they're not kind of quite getting the context, I don't think that will matter, because the sort of like the characters, and one of the strengths of I think of my books is the variety of characters, and I think that helps move them on as well, and different characters use kind of different vocabularies and so on. But there is a lot of good words, and in particular in the rhyming book, Amanda Alexander, sort of like rhyming often means that you have to choose a word that maybe sort of like is a little out of the zone of the reader, because of the need to find a rhyme, and also to keep with the rhythm of the verse itself. So there are a couple of things. I mean, if I take a brief example from Amanda Alexander, sort of like, now the very friendly Panda did not dawdle or meander, but Amanda took a detour to the shops. She pondered and she thought, then her eye was quickly caught by the scarf that hung beside the knitted tops. I mean, that's not overly complicated, but dawdle and meander, you know, sort of like might not mean anything initially to a young reader, or, you know, sort of somebody being read to. But it's not difficult to kind of maybe guess that, you know, what it means, and or for a teacher maybe to explain that very quickly, you know, or maybe to have a discussion about what it means, you know. And I just like the way that rolling rhythm, you know, the words seem to kind of roll on, just seem to win out over that. So both books have
Brilliant.
a range of vocabulary, but I think the context and the style of it helps move that on, if you know what I mean.
Sounds like the teachers will have a lot to actually work with should they choose your books to bring into the classroom. So I would like to, at this point, hand over to you, Steve, for you to do some read alouds from your amazing books. And we can't wait to hear it. So I'll hand over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to start with the Quinton quads and the mystery of Malprentice Manor. Although there is a prologue that really kind of concentrates on Evil Edith and Grizzly Gus, who are kind of enemy characters. But I'm well, there's a picture of Evil Edith there. But I'm starting on chapter 1, which is called Worms for Breakfast. We need to go outside, Kaz yelled as she hurtled down the stairs and exploded into the kitchen. Mum's in one of her moods again. Kaz was one of the Quinton quads, 4 sisters who had a reputation for mischief, even though such behaviour was never intentional. Any trouble that came about did so as a purely accidental consequence of their adventurous and imaginative natures, which took them along paths determined by their curiosity. At least, that's how they saw it. But others, like their mum, always seemed to have a different view. "What have you done this time?" Sally asked. "It's only the first day of the summer holidays, and she's already mad at us." Of the 4, Sally was the eldest by about 5 minutes, followed by Kaz, Poppy and Em in turn, and liked to think of herself as the leader of their little band. It wasn't that she was overly bossy or tried to assert her seniority to the detriment of the others, but out of all of them, she was most like their mum, and she was the bossiest person the girls had ever known. Unfortunately, Sally did have a tendency to keep the others organised with an unwelcome flair for creating detailed schedules. "Actually, Mum might only be mad at her," Em piped up, speaking around a mouthful of toast. She was the most thoughtful and academic of the 4, and was generally slower at eating because her mind always strayed onto thoughts about science and nature. The others suspected that Mum liked Em best, simply for the fact that she made far less noise than the others did, but such was their united nature that none of them had ever discussed it openly or made any kind of big deal about it. "You know how it works, Em," Poppy said. "If one of us is in bother, we all share the trouble." Although the girls were pretty positive overall, Poppy was the most optimistic and could generally see the bright side of most situations. She'd always look for the good in people too, and try to make sure that everyone would be friends with one another. She preferred having fun through spontaneous play rather than any strict organisation and planning, but her positive nature meant that she didn't like to upset Sally by saying something about the latter's schedules. "If we're in trouble, it's more likely to be something Kaz did," Sally added. "Hey," Kaz yelled, "that's unfair." But her sisters stared at her with looks that showed they knew it to be true. "Okay, little Tommy got into my jar of worms and started eating them." "Oh," the other 3 said in unison, pulling faces to match. "Worms for breakfast." "But I don't see how it's only my fault." Kaz folded her arms and frowned. She was right, of course. While it had been her idea to collect the worms, all 4 of the quads had helped to do so, even though none of them had any idea what they were going to do with the collection. And now I'm going to read a short extract from Amanda, Alexander, and the Very Friendly Panda. So I start at the very beginning with this, and as you can see, there are some nice illustrations to start with. And here we have Mr. Panda inviting Amanda to the or giving her an invite, should I say. So, Amanda, Alexander, said the Very Friendly Panda, are you coming over later for your tea? Why, thank you, Mr. Panda, said Amanda Alexander. You're very kind and friendly asking me. I'm a very friendly chap, said the Panda in the cap. We'll have tea and scones and lots of homemade jam. You really are beyond compare, said the girl with bright red hair. I'm pleased you asked me over. Yes, I am. Come around at 4 and simply knock upon my door, but be sure to close my brand new garden gate. I'll make certain it's closed tight. That would only be polite, and I'm confident that I will not be late. We'll have lots of fun, but for now I've got to run. There are so many things I really should prepare. I must also make a dash and hurry homewards in a flash. I've yet to make my mind up what to wear. Now the Very Friendly Panda did not dawdle or meander, but Amanda took a detour to the shops. She pondered and she thought, then her eye was quickly caught by the scarf that hung beside the knitted tops. It was just the perfect present for a panda, not a pheasant, for it matched the cap he almost always wore. So she paid for it with cash. Then Amanda had to dash, but tripped and fell as she rushed out the door. She was in the right old muddle as she landed in a puddle and was helped up by a monkey in a suit, and much to her relief didn't laugh or give her grief, simply asking if she'd fallen for the newt. And there indeed he was, in the puddle looking cross, saying, You really should be careful where you fall. I'm very sorry, sir, said Amanda in despair, but I'd rather I had never tripped at all. The monkey in the suit then pulled out a shiny flute and played a merry tune upon the air. Then Amanda laughed a while, and in turn the newt he smiled, for the song was far too bright for him to care. And again, another illustration.
Fantastic. Absolutely love it. Very, very good. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing your wonderful books with teachers. It's always a pleasure to hear the author's voice behind children's books. Finally, can you share with us where your books can be purchased here in the UK?
Yeah, sure. At the moment, the Quinton Quads book is only available through Amazon, but there are both paperback and Kindle versions should people want to try it one or the other. Amanda Alexander is available through Amazon and can be ordered through bookshops too. And it's available in paperback and Kindle versions.
Well, we look forward to hearing more about your books as your writing journey continues, Steve. I will place links for the Quinton Quads and the Mystery of Malprentice Manor, as well as Amanda Alexander and the Very Friendly Panda in this video. Thank you so much for joining Readmaster for UK Teachers, home of the author's voice. It has been an absolute pleasure sharing books with you, and I am certain that teachers will find your books wherever they are, as they're certainly worth having in the classroom. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.